In this video, I'm going to cover the number relationships of the cards. And this is by far the most involved part of the compatibility that you're going to do, simply because there are so many numbers, there's so many possible relationships. Now, number relationships is something I didn't really talk about much long ago. In the Reading the Little Book course, where I introduced this number table of numbers 1 through 9, and also in the Time in the Little Book, where I talked about different ways to examine a birth card spread, I didn't emphasize relationships of numbers too much. But it's a very important part of reading the spread in general. So everything I'm going to talk about here is going to impact your birth card readings. So this is a really, really important chapter of this. And it's even when I teach astrology, when I teach compatibility on astrology, I always end up teaching so many basic important things just to look at, even when you're not doing compatibility. And with the cards, this is one of those things, probably the biggest one. So everything I talk about in this video and these numbers videos, you also want to learn these to apply to the birth spread. So with two people, we're going to take one person's moon card and another person's moon card, for instance, or one person's birth card and another person's birth card. In the individual birth spread, you might want to say, well, the moon's card is this, and the moon is placed in this card. So the moon card has a relationship to the card that the moon is placed in. So how do those relate, and what's the potential of those? The sun and moon are two opposite sides of us. What kind of relationship do those have? A powerful dynamic one, or one that can't do that much? So we talked a little bit about that when we said it's best always to have one of the sun and moon in red and the other in black. But now everything I talk about these numbers you can add to that birth chart, that birth spread interpretation, and it'll really open up a lot more understanding. So these are really, really super important principles. Okay. First principle we've got is same numbers. Two people can have the same card, can be the same number. And again, it could be a different suit. We're just talking numbers here. Don't even think about suits right now. So they can be the same number. Or two people can both be 7s, or they could both be 8s in their birth card. Same numbers are real simple. They're exponential. First you had 1 2, and now you had another 2. So you've got 2 2s. You're going to have a lot of 2 activity. So whatever that same number is, you're going to get a lot of that activity. Now the nice thing about that in the relationship is it helps the two people to support each other and validate each other. Okay? And very understanding. So you won't not always get as much growth when you're got the same card as some of the other possible combinations. But it's a really good thing because it helps people understand each other and validate each other and experience things and work on things in a way that's the same, which means in a way that they can do them together. And while they do them together, both people feel validated because they're very much on the same wavelength. So it's a great thing when we've got same numbers going on. Okay? I'd even say it's so good that if you've got 2 black cards, like a 6 of spades and a 6 of clubs, the fact that they're the same number will still let those cards connect pretty good. Okay? Then there's sequential numbers. Sequential numbers like ace and a 2, a 4 and a 5, a 6 and a 7, a 9 and a 10, anything like that, any sequential numbers. They're synergistic and capable of achieving much with each other. Synergistic, what I mean by that is they can do more together. By more, I mean a more widespread array of things than they would alone. So this is a very additive relationship. It's great to have sequential numbers. It doesn't really matter what numbers are sequential, they're good. With face cards, jack and queens are sequential, and queens and kings are sequential. Okay? So anytime you see any sequential numbers, those cards are going to be able to relate, they're going to be able to energize each other, and they're going to be able to go places together. I'd probably say from going places, their strongest thing is when you've got links of sequential cards. Sometimes you'll see people have 3 or 4, 5 cards in sequential linkage with each other. And those cards are going to be able to make these people do a lot together. Okay? Now, of sequential numbers, the most powerful ones are 2s and 3s, or meaning a 2 with a 3, a 5 with a 6, or an 8 with a 9. Now why is that? Well, it's real simple. If we look at our number grid, with a 2, if we numerically do its addition and we add up all the numbers in 2, we get 1 plus 2 equals 3. So 2 is also operating on the level of 3. It inherently has 3 in it. And a 3, of course, is a 3. So there's not only a sequential relationship here, there's also a same number relationship underneath the surface. So the 2s and 3s working together, they can do a lot, they can synergize, they can do more than they would alone. They can go places together, move up the food chain together, move into better lives with each other in the context of what the suit is. But when it's a 2 and a 3, they additionally, because a 2 is a 3 as well as has a 3 energy to it, they also are going to be able to understand each other and validate each other more so. So it's a really nice thing. Okay, same for 5 and 6. 5, if we add up every number in 5, we'll end up, after we do our reduction, with a 6. And I explained all this in the Reading the Little Book course. So if you want to review this table, do. But this table is really important for understanding your numerical relationships. And if you already understand this table, all these little things I wrote down, you'll know them already. And you won't even have to memorize them because you'll be able to just remember them from the chart. So all the numbers in 5 added together after reduction give us a 6. So a 5 is a 6 on another level. It has a 6 quality to it. So the minute you get to the 5, the 6 is no stopping it. The minute you get to the 2, there's no stopping the 3. And the minute you get to the 8, there's no stopping the 9, because they already have it as part of themselves. So these two cards, very synergistic. They're very much going to be able to build a fulfilling life, go through the changes, make the adjustments, make the good investments to have fulfillment with each other's card, but doing it while they're validating each other and feeling understood. Okay? Then 8 and 9, same thing. 8 is a 9 on another level. So 8 and 9s are going to be able to synergize. They're going to be able to go deep into things. They're going to be able to break their limitations for happiness and fulfillment. Because remember, 7s is our limitations to our 6, our happiness and fulfillment. Everything after that is more. So 8 and 9s can work together. And they also can be very validating to each other, and because 8's and 9 on another level, because they're also what I call the same numbers. So validating, understanding, and synergistic to get a lot more fulfillment with each other. Another really great thing. Now 2s with 3s, what do they do with each other? 2s and 3s are going to be very creative with each other. And 2s are opportunities. 3s are the energy we put into our opportunities, right? So this is putting a lot of energy into opportunities. And as a result, you get more success. So all sequential numbers are good, though. But those 3 are not only good for getting things done, but they're particularly validating and understanding towards each other. But don't complain anytime you have any sequential relationship going on. Okay? And here's a very basic principle. Odd numbers. Odd numbers do well with other odd numbers, though there are many exceptions to this general rule. So 3, 5, and 7s, and 9s and 1s. 1, 3, 5, and 7 are odd. But don't even count the ace as a odd or even. Okay? 3, 5, 7s, and 9s are the odds. They can all do okay with each other. It's not the best relationship necessary. These other relationships I mentioned here are more powerful, but odd numbers working together can always relate somehow. How can they relate? Because all those cards are working in somewhat of a challenging environment. So they can appreciate those challenges that each of them has to deal with and support and help each other with them as well. Okay? Then 2, 4, it's so hard when you have a challenging life because you're an odd card. When your card is odd, and that's a more challenging area of life for you. Or an area that if it's a good odd card in a nice place in your spread, you really enjoy the challenge of that and you want more of it. It helps to have someone there who can appreciate the value of that. And anyone else with an odd number can appreciate the value of that. Whereas oftentimes someone with an even number will be going like, why are you, dealing with all these hardships and troubles when you could just come and hang out with me and not bother with that, So even numbers won't understand that, although they can learn to see the worth of it if we get one of these sequential numbers relationships going on, or some other good relationship going on, which we'll talk about below, or as we get to it. Even numbers do well with other even numbers. So that's 2, 4, 6, and 8. The even numbers tend to like each other. Now, of the odd numbers, I would say 3, 5, and 7 do better with each other than 9 does with 3, 5, or 7, just slightly, if you want to split the hair. Same for even numbers. 2, 4, 6, and 8 are just built for each other. They can hang with 8, but 8 and 9 are a little bit like too far out, too evolved, or struggling too hard to get evolved to connect quite as good with the lower numbered cards in general. But all even numbers, 2, 4, 6, and 8, considered a good match. These are cards, again, that can understand each other. They're going about things in different ways, but they can understand each other. They're creating security, validation, taking advantage of opportunities, finding fulfillment with each other, or fulfillment with life. And so they understand that purpose of life, that is the goal. And so it helps them work together on that and to validate each other on that. The odd-even number similarity is like the easiest one to think about, but it's not the most powerful. If you see an odd-even relationship, but it also has another one of these relationships I'm talking about, you always want to consider the other relationship as more important. Okay? So if you have if you have an odd and even and they're not really good, but then they're sequential, that's really good. So forget the fact that odds and evens don't like each other in general. If they're sequential, it's wonderful. Okay, aces are easy. Aces they're the integral component of all other numbers, right? Because every number is just a bunch of aces, right? A bunch of ones. So they relate to all the numbers and they relate to all the face cards. And the unique thing about the 8, it's always nice when anyone has an ace in their spread, because they can connect to any other card and they'll connect it in a way to bring out the best in the situation. So they're good to have with any card, always a winning combination. However, they're most powerful when they're with 4s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and kings. Okay? Why kings? Because ultimately kings have to get focused on one thing. Kings have to get down to doing the one thing that they were born to sacrifice everything else for. And that one thing could be an ace. And is an ace. So kings always do well with aces. And after kings, which rule the 7, 8s, and 9s, the next card we go back to is the ace, right? So kings and aces are actually synergistic. If we did a circle of cards, kings and aces are synergistic. So are 9s and aces. Okay, 9 is making all the sacrifices for that one thing, the ace. Okay, so 9s and 1s are actually sequential. So aces and 9s and aces and kings are a great combination. That can cause people to do a lot with something. That whatever that card is, they're going to do the couple's going to do a tremendous a lot with that and develop that card to a high level. Okay? All right, why are they powerful with 4, 7, 8s, and 9s? Well, it's sort of mathematical again. If we add up every number in 4 and reduce it, we get a 1. If we add up every number in 7 and then reduce it, we get a 1. If we square 8, we get 64. 6 plus 4 is 10. We get a 1. So 4, 7, 8s all have a 1 vibration. Did I write that down right? 4, 7, and 8s all have a 1 quality to them. They're beginnings on a new level. Aces is all beginnings. So a 4 with a 1 are capable of starting a lot of new things together. In a way, that's going to be very stable because of the 4. Aces and 7s, well, 7s is the number of destructions, death, losses. Well, you can't lose something without another opportunity being there, with something else new being there. So you lose your job. What's the new thing? Time. Wonderful. What are you going to do at that time? Time is your ace. Okay? So there's no loss that doesn't create an opportunity, something new in our lives. So 7s have a new beginning quality to them. They're beginning something on a new level, and that new level could be that ace. So ace and sevens can always renew themselves, always start things over again. They can go through the hard things in life together and always find room to start something new. You know, so you'll never find a 1-7 relationship of people who go, well, geez, the kids have moved out, what should we do with each other now, and get divorced. Like you see that, you know, people more often get divorced when the kids move out or when the kids get mature enough that the parents don't think they need them. You won't ever see that with the 1-7 card happening. The 1-7 will go, okay, kids are gone, it's sad, oh, I don't know what to do with myself, but they'll discover something new to do with each other. So it's a renewing type thing. So they're great with the 7s, they're good with the 4s, oh, with the 8s. 8s are always also beginning something new again. Like they also have an idea of new beginnings. And with the 8, the new beginning is just seeing something in a whole new way. 8s don't actually change your life, make you different in your actions or what you're doing, but they make you different in how you relate to everything you're doing from a much healthier view. So 8s require a lot of self-knowledge, which is aces, right? Aces are Janma, which is birth of self. 8s are birth of a much higher, more evolved self. So they do well with aces. And so when you get a 1 and 8 together, it's a combination that can always cause a lot of room for upliftment, you know, doing the next most true, next best thing. So plenty of room for new beginnings with that one too. And with any of these, 4, 7s, 8s with the 1, they're always going to do and achieve lots of new things that are going to be done on a better level. Okay? 1 and 8s can be very powerful together for bringing in new things, developing new technologies, things like that. Okay? And kings, well, kings, because kings rule 7, 8, and 9, and 7, 8s are nicely related to 1s. And then kings rule 9, and they're most strong at 9, in fact, and that makes them sequential to 1. So remember, jacks rule ace, 2, and 3, but they're most dominant in 1, right? Okay? Queens rule 4, 5, and 6, but they're most dominant in the 5. Kings rule 7, 8, and 9, and they're most 7, 8, 9, but they're most dominant in 9. So kings can relate to the ace as a 7, 8, or 9. It can do everything of the 7, everything of 8, and the 9, but it's going to dominantly relate as the 9, which means it's going to dominantly relate as what is it called? A sequential number with the ace. Okay? But ace will do, king will do good with, very good with ace. I would say kings do better with aces than queens or 2s, because queens, because kings rule the, 7 and 8s, 2 of the numbers kings rule are 1, or have a 1 quality to them, and kings are sequential to aces. So really powerful combination to have that. And also, kings and jacks are sequential too. Okay, king is the last, has a lot to do with number 9. Jacks is dominant number 1. So kings and jacks are sequential. So in face cards, jack and queens are sequential, queens and kings are sequential, and kings and jacks are sequential. Okay? Which means there's not a face card relationship that's not sequential. They're always good. And we saw that when we looked at birth spreads. I always pointed out, not only do they have a jack, they also have a king, or they not only have a jack, they have a queen. You get a lot of power in a spread when they've got some, 2 face cards going on. 10s are the easiest. 10s are the path of all the other cards. So 10s can relate well to all numbers as well as all face cards. Consider a 10 to be like the same as the card, to have the qualities of a similar card and a sequential card at the same time, okay? Because same and sequential are like the 2 most instinctively natural relationships. We want to relate in the same and share the same thing, or we want to work in a way that's energized and lets us do more and get somewhere, which is sequential. Sequential relationships are about let's get somewhere. Makes sense, right? Oh, 7's going, oh, I want to go somewhere. 8 shows up and says, hey, just jump in my car and we'll go somewhere, right? 7 goes to 8 down the road. But at the 10, it's almost better. At 10, Saturn goes, I want to go somewhere. And, 7 says, I want to go somewhere. The 10 says, okay, I'll act like an 8, jump in, we'll go somewhere. But then 10 might say, hey, I want to go somewhere. And 10 will become a 6, and 7 will say, okay, I'll have to drive this time, and I'll take you somewhere. So the 10s can be synergistic from one below or one above the other number. But to keep it simple, 10s are synergized and make more happen with any card they're with. Okay? And they also can share and validate and understand any card they're with. 10s are fantastic. 10s and aces, easy. If you see an ace and a 10, you know they'll be compatible with everyone with that card. But remember, you only can be as compatible as that card is good. If that card in your spread or that other person's spread is a trashed card, well, you're not going to get very far even with the perfect person in your car, right? If your card is trashed. Okay, so always remember that. Don't just say, oh, I had this person, we had a perfect Venus card, so they were synergistic, and da-da-da-da-da, or his was a 10 and mine was an ace, And it's like, but his 10 had Rahu, Saturn, and Sun in it, and your 10 had Saturn, Rahu, and the Moon in it. You ain't getting anywhere, okay? All right. It'll just hurt more when it doesn't work, okay? All right. Now it gets more confusing. Those are the easy ones. 3, 6, and 9s have a dynamic and fulfilling relationship with each other. Okay. 3s, it looks like I missed a relationship here. 3s and, 3, add up every number in 3, you get 6. So 3 is a 6 on another level. 3 squared is 9. 3 is the root of 9. So 3, whatever it does, is going to end in a deeper understanding of things, which is 9. Okay, or a deeper connection to things. The easy way to say, if you practice or train in something, you'll make a deeper connection to that something, right? It's just like that. 3 is the art of making effort and practicing. So if you practice painting, you'll make a deeper connection to painting. It's invariably going to happen. But if a 3 card shares with a 9 card, whatever effort is made achieves a deeper connection with less effort. So it's like training with the best coach possible. Okay, your training is more effective and more efficient, and any effort that's made creates a deeper connection and understanding of that 9. So that's a really nice relationship when there's a 3 card and a 9 card. You can also have a 3 card and a 6 card. While 3s are making effort and they want some level of fulfillment, and with a 6 card, they're especially going to be able to get that fulfillment. 6s want fulfillment, but they have a 3 in them. No one gets fulfilled unless you make some effort. And going to the astrologer and having something predicted isn't enough effort usually. You got to do a little something. You got to train a little bit, struggle to be a little better at what you want to get it. And you just got to do one little more thing at the 6. Well, sharing with the 3, it helps you do that one little thing. So 3 and 6s are more fulfilling. Okay, they both are striving for fulfillment, but they both have work to do. 3 has more work to do. 6 has more fulfillment to offer. Together, they get more of everything. So a great combination. Last thing is 6 and 9s. Say 6 times 6 is 36. 3 and 6 equals 9. So 6 squared is going to end up at 9. Small fulfillments, finding fulfillment with things will lead us to a deeper connection to things. And that's something I haven't talked about enough. That's like if you understand 2 people that are really in love with each other and they have this really nice 6 thing. And through that love for each other, they eventually learn to expand that love onto a deeper level. In fact, Yogananda says people need to, instinctively they want to get together, but out of getting together to a couple and creating love and feeling love, it's natural for that love to start expanding. First it expands to their children, then it starts expanding to their community, and they start plugging in and caring and loving their community, and then it can keep expanding. And that's what happens with the 6-9. You have fulfillment that's expanding. You get personal fulfillment, and then you expand that to include more and more people, more and more things in your life. So it's also a very, very nice relationship to have. Now, 9s require training. Well, Venus isn't the hardest trainer out there, but he's going to refine his abilities a little bit, which means a little bit of training. 6 is like you're a successful, say, acupuncturist, but still every few years you go and brush up on some skills, learn a new place to stick the needle in someone, something like that. And so you're constantly refining your skills through a little bit of accessory training. That's what the 6 does. The 3 is like full bore training, studying. All I'm focusing on is learning and developing what I want to develop. 6 is like I'm good at it, I'm finding fulfillment with it, I have a reputation with it, but I'm still constantly refining what I'm doing. Okay, and we're always going to do that. Like if you're an astrologer, even if you never study with anyone ever again, every time you read a horoscope, you're refining your technique, getting better and better at it. So 6s are always refining to get to a better 9. A 6 and 9 sharing allows the people to do that better with that card, where they'll become more refined, connect things on a deeper level, and the 9 will have more fulfillment, more balanced fulfillment. So those are all really powerful combinations. Any of 3, 6, and 9 shared is a good thing. Okay. Now, the card I forgot was... Okay, I'll remember it at the end, I think. I forgot it again. Okay. 2s and 4s, real easy. 2 squared is 4, square root of 4 is 2. So 2s are opportunities, 4s are stabilizing and securing an opportunity. 2s are connecting to something, 4s are being secure in where we're at, which means secure in that connection. So a 2-4 connection is a wonderful thing of two people feeling connected and feeling secure in that connection. From the point of view of just feeling good, it's one of the best connections you're going to find. Okay? So connective and secure with each other. Really great combination. Very simple too. Then there's 1s and 4s. Why do we have a 1 and 4? Well, we already talked about that with aces a little bit. They're most powerful with the 4s. I'll just add to that a little bit. And that is that 4 is secure in my, and you know, it's remember, it's Shema, which is secure in my, and 1s, aces, are birth of I. So this is I and mine. This is the I am this, and these are the things I'm secure in. Okay? And that means being secure, one of the things I'm secure in is myself. So this creates a lot of 1-4 cards when they relate. They help each other feel very secure. The 4 card will learn to understand themselves more and find greater security in that and make some growth. And the ace card will find themselves becoming very secure with themselves and more of a stable person. So 1s and 4s are really good. And because there's the ace, the self, that's feeling secure, the 4, it allows for a lot of integrity and honesty in the relationship. When are we dishonest in relationships? When we're not really secure in ourselves, right? When we think, you know, even like kids, why are kids dishonest with their parents a lot of the time? Because they're not secure in their relationship with their parents. They think their parents are going to look at them evilly or throw them out or scold them or criticize them or something. And so they hide most of their lives from their parents quite regularly. But if with the 1-4 relationship, you won't have that. You can be honest because you're secure in that relationship. Okay, the I is secure in that relationship. And the new things you learn about yourself have a secure place to come out. So it's a really nice combination. 1s and 7s I talked about as well, just repeat it a bit. So 7s are restarting things after setbacks and disappointments and losses. And aces are the things they start. So if you've been through a difficult time and you might notice one of your 7 cards connects to somebody's ace card, you know you're about to, that person's going to lead you to something new somehow. Okay, whatever that card that you're connecting with them, they're going to lead you to that new thing. And of course, aces are happy in any event. You know, aces are all about birth of self, learning more about the self. And 7s, of course, lead to that by destroying the things that, or putting a limit on the things that are keeping us from finding ourselves. So it's a happy relationship for both. 4s and 7s provide stability amongst personal growth. The 4 is promised to grow and the 7 gets stabilized. So why do they have an important relationship? Because 4 squared is 16, 1 and 6 equals 7. So it has a 7 vibration. It's going to result in 7. 7 is going to result in 4. 7 squared is 49, 9 and 4 is 13, 1 and 3 is 4. So these two cards, 4 and 7, at their limits, they're going to, at the end of the day, when they get done with what they're going to do, they're going to have each other. So what does that mean for a 7? So at the end of the day, the 7 loses everything during the day. All day long he loses everything, right? And gets spit on and stuff. At the end of the day, what does he have? 4. He has his personal security. He has that which he can be secure about, his personal security. He can still feel good about himself as a being. So, all right, so everything's been taken away, but I'm still secure in what I am in a concrete way. You still have that. That can't ever be taken away. Okay? Then the 4s, as they secure things, well, everything they secure is eventually going to suffer some loss and damage. So you can whatever you want to get is going to get scratched, it's going to get damaged, it's eventually going to break down, wear down, or die, right? It's just going to happen. So 4 always leads to 7 eventually. Now, when they're together, it stabilizes the 7. The 7 gets more stabilized, and the 4, which can be very rigid and stuck, can start growing more, okay, and breaking out of its mold a little bit. So this is also a positive relationship. Okay, it's a very growth-centered relationship. But what's important is there's relationship. And there's no such thing as a bad relationship. There's only relating and not relating. The only bad relationship is a relationship of non-relating, right? Because then there's nothing happening. We want a relationship so we can relate. How we relate isn't as important as the fact that we are relating. Okay? The worst thing is having cards that can't relate, wanting to relate, and being unable to relate. That's when things get frustrating, and that's when we start thinking of reasons why the other person won't relate to us and saying, oh, they don't love me, they love someone else, they're this, they're that, or something's wrong with me. None of that's true. Cards either relate, in which case they feel happy with each other, or they can't relate, in which case they don't feel happy with each other. Okay. 5 and 7s. 5 squared becomes 7. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 and 5 is 7. So the end of the 5 is ultimately a 7. So 5s are always trying to make the best of things, trying to take the good from the bad. Well, the bad is what they throw out and kill. That's the 7. There's always something that the 5s are getting rid of. So if you see a 5 coming up, you got some hard choices to make, and you're going to make a 7 sacrifice or let go of something or lose something. Because 5 has a 7 in it all the time. But you're doing it because of the 6 and the 7. Because you can be more fulfilled making that hard choice. But it's a hard choice because the 7's involved. So basically when a 5 and 7 are together, you can make those the 5 card can make those hard choices much more readily. Making those hard choices also gives them the 6, the fulfillment. Okay? So if you have a 5 card and that 5 card's getting activated, you might find a person with a 7 card or a strong 7 somehow is supporting you in making that change perhaps. Okay? Because, letting go of things, making the hard decisions are what 7s are just so used to because it just seems to happen to them all the time. So it's easy for them. Okay, then the 7, okay, and that's the connection there. They have this 7 connection. And you can almost say it's a slightly synergistic, it's also a synergistic combination. So what does the 7 get? What the 7 gets is some of the fulfillment that comes from the 6. 6, 7. So the 7's life becomes more fulfilling as well. So that's also a good combination. Now the combination that I forgot to write down was okay. Another one, it's not the most powerful, it's the 2s and the 9s. If the 2 is a 3 on another level, it can, the opportunities of the 2, connecting to the things of the 2, which through that connection will begin putting energy into those things through this 3, will eventually help us get to a deeper level of fulfillment. So what I'm basically saying, to get to a deeper connection with things, which is the 9, the first thing you have to do is you have to connect to it at the 2, right? You can't get deeply connected to something that you're not, which is 9, unless you're 2 connected to it, right? Can't happen. And then it happens by you connect, put energy into something, and then you, which is the 3, and then you get to the 9. Also, okay, so that's the main thing. So, a 2 and a 9, when you see those 2 cards together, these are 2 cards that you wouldn't think would be good at all, because one's even, one's off. But the 2s have the ability to connect, 9s have the ability to be deeply connected, to be connected to the deepest thing. So this helps the 2 make the most of its opportunities. Okay, it helps the 9 connect to something, so it can connect through its own nature, through that thing very deeply. Okay, the 9 has to be exposed to something to be able to connect to it on a deeper level, and the 2 helps them become exposed to that thing, gives them that opportunity. All right, so that's also a decent little connection. Now we just have the face cards. Okay, jacks do well with aces, 2s, and 3s, with which they're most creative and which they have the most fun. Why? Because jacks rule 1, 2, and 3s. Duh. They do great with 1, 2, and 3s. They're right on their wavelength with 1, 2s, and 3s. But they're most on the wavelength of 1, because jacks are specifically vibrate to 1. They're brand new. Okay? So jacks do great with 1, 2s, and 3s. They are very productive relating to queens, and a bit less productive relating to 4s and 6s. Okay. Did I do that right? Okay, they're very productive relating to queens. They're productive to queens simply because of the fact that they're sequential, right? There's something else here. I didn't write it wrong, but let me see. Okay. Queens rule 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So, because queens rule 4, 5, and 6, jacks can relate to 4, 5s, and 6s very well. They'll relate to 5, the strongest of those. And that's what I didn't write down. Because queens specifically have a 5 vibration. So this means that jacks, their new ideas, their new, whatever they can do that's new, can help the 5 solve their problems. See, 5 so often needs something to help them make that hard decision, something new. Jacks can bring that new insight to the 5. Okay? Then jacks like new things. They like dealing in new stuff. Well, they don't get bored. 5 is the most active phase of 4, 5, and 6. 4, okay, I got something that's pretty good. 5, I have to start hustling it, making it, really testing it, really making it work. Lots of new things to deal with, a lot of new decisions to make. 6 is like, yeah, this is great. I'm just in my routine and it's feeling wonderful. So the jacks have the most fun in the 5 because they don't get bored as much. 4s and 6s aren't quite as exciting as the 5. Now, jacks will do better with a 4 than a 6 because 4 has a 1 vibration to it. Okay? They do like to create new things, or they represent the new stable thing. So a jack with a 4 is very good at taking his ideas and making them concrete. His new thing and making it more concrete. All right? And 4s are very stabilizing, but they need something. They do better, they'll do more stabilizing when they have something new to present it with the jack can present to them. Got it? Okay. But jacks are really easy. You know, you can just say, yeah, it's a jack, it does good with everything. It's a queen, it's going to do fine with everything. It's a king, it'll do fine with everything. But jacks will have the most fun with 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay? Then kings, they can achieve extremes with kings. All right? They can do, jack and king combinations will do the most extreme things. By extreme, I mean the most new, the most groundbreaking, the most revolutionary things will be jacks with kings. Okay? The reason that is because they're synergistic, right? They're synergized. And jack rules 3, which has relationship to 9. Jacks rule 2, which has relationship to 9, the big king card. Jacks are 1, which relates to 7 and 8. So you see the power of jacks and kings? So they have the jacks and kings together can do the most revolutionary, most extreme, most groundbreaking things. So as I mentioned, we can use this in our individual spreads. I've got my sun in the jack of clubs and my moon in the king of clubs. So you see why I cause so much troubles for everyone else? Okay. It's that jack and king in the clubs realm working together in a synergistic fashion. So if you see that between two people, it'll also help them break past a lot of things in their life. A lot of newness, a lot of sacrificing. Jacks bring the new things, kings make the sacrifices and let go of the past. Between those things, you do the most new things. If you're not willing to totally let go of the past, you can't ever do anything completely new, right? So jacks and queens, jacks and kings synergize that. Kings and aces do it too, of course. But I'd say jacks are more powerful because the face cards are powerful, and jack also has this nice 3 vibration that supports getting to that 9. All right. Okay, what about jacks with 7s, 8s, and 9s? They do okay, but these relationships I mentioned are the most powerful. They'll do fine with them because 7s and 8s are working on a new level. So jacks like new things. 8s are a person becoming renewed psychologically and getting a whole new outlook on life. So jacks can support that in the 8. 7s will suffer losses and have to suffer losses and breaks in life. Jacks help them find the new thing that's available to them in their life, in amongst that pain and difficulty they might be suffering. Okay. And of course, when jack's with an ace, 2, or 3, if it's with a 2, it's going to support connecting. If it's a 3, it's going to support training and effort. If it's an ace, it's going to support new things. It's going to just kind of shift to whatever card it is. So the same way that 10s can kind of adapt to be the same as the card, jacks can do that with 1, 2s, and 3s, and they also can become sequential with 1, 2s, and 3s, just the same way that the 10 would. So it's great to have a jack with an ace, 2, or 3. All right, queens. Queens do well with 4, 5s, and 6s because they rule those 3 cards. So they can, again, just like a 10, they can be sequential or the same as these. The queen can act like a 5, a 4, or a 6. So with the 5, it can act like a 4 or a 6. With the 6, it will act like a 5 or a 6. And with the 5, of course, it will act like a 4, 6, or a 5. With the 4, it will act like a 4 or a 5. So it'll either be validating and understanding if it shifts to a similar state, or synergistic if it shifts to a sequential state. So great, can't complain with 4, 5, or 6. Now it's probably strongest with the 5 though, okay? Because that's where the queen is most happy. That's the queen's most innate card. That's the most similar, but then it can easily shift to the 4 or 6. And usually, honestly, you don't need to differentiate. I just like to talk a lot, and some people like to know all the nuances. For practical card reading, there are 6, and you've got a queen. All right, I'm going to consider these cards capable of doing something. Do I want to split the hairs and talk to the person for 20 minutes about how they're more capable of certain things than other things? Usually, it's not necessary. Usually, the person doesn't want to wait 20 minutes before hearing the next good or bad thing on a big level. But you can split all those hairs. So I want to explain all the theory so that at least maybe in your own relationships where it's worth your time to split the hairs, you might want to. Okay. And then queens, I've already talked about queens and jacks, right? Queens do good with anybody. But I would say a jack with the 4, 5, and 6 will generally do better than a queen with a 1, 2, or 3. Except the ace. Aces do good with everyone. And the reason I say that is because I think it's easier for the jacks to go forward, for the queens to go backwards into new things. Queens are so much into establishing what they've already done that they don't always want to get distracted by new things as much. However, again, it's splitting hairs. Queens are naturally a 2 card, right? 2s are naturally 2. So of jack, 2, and 3, of ace, 2, and 3, queens connect really well to the 2s. Much better to the 2s than they do to the 3s. Because queens are about connecting, right? And 2s are about connecting. So queens and 2s will do better than queens and 3s, but they all have something to offer each other, okay? 2s and queens will definitely connect more, but queens can synergize with the 3 to some degree, okay? But definitely they do best with aces and 2s than they do with 3s. But I wouldn't call a 3 a bad thing, just not quite as productive as a 1, an ace or 2 connection to the queen, okay? All right, I write down they reach their limits with the 7, because 5 squared becomes 7, which is the sign, the number of limitations. Now, reaching their limits is not a bad thing. Reaching limits is basically saying, okay, I've done the most that I'm capable of doing. I ran the fastest race I can ran, and I'm okay with that. Okay, so by limit, I don't mean in a negative way. So with 7s and kings, they reach their limit. But that's nice. That's like saying they reach their limit of productivity. That's a tree that grows as much fruit as it can bear. If it grew more than that fruit, what would happen? The branches would start breaking. So with the queen, with the 7 or king, it lets the queen go to its highest capability of achievement without going to where it ruins things for itself. So what do I mean by that? Well, you always can go more. We'll look at Lance Armstrong. It's like the perfect example. When all those Tour de France medals, retired, was enjoying the easy life for a couple years. Then he decided to go back into bike racing. And he had this feeling, don't do it. He just had this big feeling inside not to pick up his bike again as far as professional cycling was concerned. But he pushed it out of his head and did it. Then he got busted for drugs, and then he lost everything. If he hadn't got back into cycling, he would still be, officially the 7-time Tour de France winner. Now, officially, he's not, okay? Because he reached his limits, and he didn't stop, all right? So when I say the queen reaches its limits with the 7 or the king, I mean that in a good way. You don't want the queen, who's got the fruit on her tree, so to speak, who's full-fledged with all the leaves and all the beautiful branches, the perfect image of the tree with healthy leaves and healthy fruit, to say, oh, I'm going to extend my branch another 3 feet. Oops, my branch just broke off. Or, oh, I'm going to pump out another 100 pounds of fruit. Oops, my branch broke off. You don't want the tree to do that. It's important to stop at our limits. Now, practically speaking, what does that mean? That means stopping before we ruin our lives in other ways. Stopping before we become a workaholic. Things like that, okay? All right. Jacks and kings, when they're together, they don't know when to stop. Like I said, I use the word extreme for a reason. Stick a queen in there, a queen and a king, queen knows when to stop. But jacks don't know when to stop when they're with kings. It becomes very extreme and doesn't result in as a pleasant of a time as far as our cells like it to be, our egos and cells like, as the queen and the king will. Okay? All right, so queen and 7 is a very doable combination, surprisingly. Okay, and they can do fine with the 7, 8, or 9 because they're synergistic to those in a way, because they're synergistic to the king energy. But the things I've described are by far the most powerful. But whenever you see a face card, don't ever consider it a negative thing with any card. It always has some relationship. The relationships I'm explaining about the face cards are the strongest. And while Jack, Queens, and Kings can do good with any card, they definitely do best Jacks with 1, 2s, and 3s, Queens with 4, 5s, and 6s, Kings with 7, 8s, and 9s. In the context of validating each other and understanding each other. The other connections, because those are all similar connections, all right, because King is 8, 7, and 9. When the King crosses into the 4, 5, and 6, or the 1, 2, and 3 or anything, there could be a lot of energy to get things done, but that simple understanding and validation will be less. There's enough differences there that every part of those people won't be validated, but out of those differences, there becomes, because there's different strengths, they can do more together. Okay? All right. I wouldn't even say more, but they can do just as much together. Kings do well with 7, 8s, and 9s. Really simple, right? Because they preside over 7, 8, and 9. Do best with 9s, though, because 9 is the number of the Kings. And so, of those three, they're going to do best with 9. But 8s have a 9 in them, so they'll do pretty good with 8s, too. They'll do fine with any of them. They create long-lasting foundations with Queens and 4s. Okay, why 4s? Well, because one of the numbers they rule is a 7, and a 4, or 7 leads to a 4, right? So they create long-lasting foundations with 4s. So Kings with the 4 will establish something, and they'll make sacrifices to the King. They'll make sacrifices to establish something that's lasting and secure at the 4. They bring about great changes with Jacks and 3s, and with Aces. But also with 3s, because 3 is the root of 9, going into deeper into things. Okay, and I explained a lot of the King relationships already through the other Queens and Kings. They can do okay with 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2s, and 3s. But Kings definitely do best with 7, 8s, 9s, 3s, 1s, and Jacks. And of course, 10s, which does good with everything. And you'll notice that of all the face cards, Kings have the less power than Queens and Jack with many cards. So Queens and Jacks have more cards they'll really excel with than the King will. But that's the nature of the King, is to be more focused, cut more things out, get to what really needs to get done more. That's the nature of Kings, is to start cutting things out. And so they have less really powerful relationships compared to the Jack or Queen cards. Okay? Alright, I hope I didn't miss anything. The most important thing is it all is derived from this table and the simple principles we've learned way back then in our first course on reading the little book. So when I sat down to write up this list, I forgot to write the 2 and 9. It just didn't come into my brain. When I was looking at the table, I said, wait a minute, I see some 3s. I missed it, I didn't write it down. So the table is, like I said, way back then when I taught that, reading the little book, this table is really important for understanding your numbers. Learn the table, and you can always get more insights. There's never a time I don't study this table where I don't get some additional insights about the cards. Alright, we will continue in the next video, but learn this very well, really important information. The best way to learn it to start with is just start looking at charts. Pull up charts of people and say, okay, what numbers do they have that are synergizing? Let me take their sun and moon. Let me take their self-planet, the one with highest degrees, and their spouse planet, the planet with lowest degrees. See how those are comparing. Let's take their ascendant ruler, or their ascendant card, and let's take their 7th cusp card, which is their partner. Let's take their ascendant lord and their 7th cusp card, and just see what kind of relationships they tend to attract. Then also check their ascendant lord, their 7th lord to their ascendant. You could do that too. Check all these possible things. Look for patterns of these in the chart. To have everything in 4 and everything else in 5. That's a lot of sequential. Okay? Look at the cards. Look at the planets that rule the cards. Look at each individual card. Okay, I have a 3, and its ruler is in a 6. Okay, I got a 3-6 relationship. Good one. So just look at all these things in the spreads and see how it builds up the power of the spreads when you see these here and you start saying, oh, this is why this person just has more energy for getting things done, because there's more cards working together somehow or supporting each other versus cards that can't relate with each other, which means less gets done. Okay, enough said. Thank you.